So where do you have to pay taxes as a digital nomad? Well, to answer this question, we need to first consider your company. If you're watching this video, I assume you already have a company somewhere. And it's important to understand that you and your company are two separate entities, okay? It's like two different people. The company makes its own profits and pays its own taxes, even though you are the one running the business and taking the sales calls and talking to the clients. You, John, Mike, or whatever your name is, are not the person earning that money. The company's making that money. And then when you take out money of the company from the company, then you pay your own taxes based on how much you've taken out. So let's start with the company. In 99% of situations, the company pays taxes based on where it is set up. So for example, if you set up the company in the UK, it needs to follow UK law and it pays UK corporation tax, so 25% for example. If the company is set up in Singapore, it'll need to follow Singapore law, right? And it would have to pay tax in Singapore. So the clients pay the company for the services that you provide. You'll get revenue minus costs and you'll have a net profit. And then that profit is going to be taxed at, say, UK 25%. And the rest of the money stays inside of the company. Okay, so we have profit after tax of 750. Now, how do you take money out of the company? At the end of the day, you own the company, you control the company, so how do you take money out? And to take money out of the company, you basically pay yourself dividends. Dividends is just a fancy word for profits that you pay out. The company makes 1,000 profits, pays 215 corporation tax, and the remaining 750 can either be kept in the company or paid out to the owner of the company, or a mix of the two, right? You can keep 300 inside and pay yourself 450, or you can do the opposite, or here, for example, we're taking out 500, okay? But now we move on to you, because the company has paid its profits, has made its profits, has paid its taxes, and now is paying you part of those profits. And if you don't know the rules, then you're in for a real shocker, because to take money out of the company, well, you have to pay taxes again, but this time at a different rate, okay? So where do you pay taxes? And to answer this question, we need to introduce the concept of personal tax residency, okay? In a similar way to the company that pays taxes based on where it's set up, you pay taxes based on where you are set up, or in proper terminology, where you're a tax resident. If you're a tax resident in a certain country, then you need to pay taxes in that country. Follow the rules of that country, and they'll have rules on what income you have to pay tax, what tax rate, etc., etc. So here, for example, if you're in the UK, the highest dividend rate is 39.35%. So basically, this is how much you'd have to pay personally on a 500 dividend, and that's the net payout, which, if you think about it, from 1,000 profit that the company's made, you only get like 300. It's ridiculous, right? But yeah, basically, you pay tax based on where you're tax resident. Now, you may be thinking, when do I become a tax resident of a country, right? And before going into complex rules and laws, if you spend most of a year in a country, over 6 months, you're pretty much always a tax resident there. If you live like 10 months in Italy or in Spain, of course, you're going to be a resident there. You don't even need to watch this video, right? But if you're a digital nomad, you may be thinking, how do I know if the countries I travel to consider me a tax resident? I've spent, 2 months in Thailand. Am I resident in Thailand? I've spent 4 months in Spain. Do I have to pay taxes in Spain? I'm a Polish citizen, maybe. Do I have to pay taxes in Poland, right? And the thing is, each country has different rules that determine whether or not you're a tax resident. So it's not so simple. So for example, in most European countries, the definition is very broad. It's like, do you usually live in this country? Okay, they'll look at your ties, do you have family in this country? Do you have active bank accounts? Do you have an available home? How many days, have you stayed? How many days have you worked here? And they do it in a way that gives such a subjective and broad definition. So if they want to screw you over and ask you to pay taxes, they can. Which is why you need to be very careful about spending a lot of time in one single country in Europe. If you look at the UK, for example, they are very precise with their rules, okay, as opposed to all European countries, because they have like a very precise test to determine whether or not you have to pay taxes with them. I won't get into too much detail here. I've made a separate video. I'll leave the link in the description, but basically based on your current situation, there'll be a number of days for you where if you stay under that number in the UK, you won't have to pay tax. And if you stay over that number, then you'll have to. So that's pretty straightforward for somewhere like the UK. And for example, Thailand, very popular for digital nomads, has a very straightforward 180 days rules. So you stay more than 180 days in Thailand, then you're a tax resident. If you stay less, then you're not. So countries like Thailand and Southeast Asia usually have more precise rules in or out. And basically you have to really go into the regulations. You have to go and see the regulations of each country you decide to visit to see whether or not you'll have to pay taxes there. And be careful as well to not fall into the trap of thinking you're either one or another. You may be tax resident of two countries and you could be tax resident of none. You need to consider each country individually. So I'll give you an example to drive this home. Now, let's imagine, this is not actual regulations, okay? I'm just creating an imaginary example for you. Let's imagine the UK has a rule where if you spend over 90 days in the country, you have to pay taxes in the UK. And let's imagine Poland has a rule where if you spend over 180 days, you have to pay taxes in Poland. Now, if you spend 100 days in the UK and 200 days in Poland, then you're a tax resident in both countries. But then if you spend 80 days in the UK and 170 days in Poland, you're a tax resident of neither. So it's super important to consider each country individually. And obviously, if you know the rules of those countries, you can play around visiting a country only for a certain amount of days to avoid taxation, right? So now, hopefully you know the countries you're going to, you've done your research, and you know in each one of these whether you'll become a tax resident or not. The final step really is, if I do become a tax resident of a country, what are their laws for tax? Okay, how much tax do I have to pay? And most importantly, you may have different sources of income, right? What income do I have to pay my taxes on? And that's the most important thing. You know, do they tax crypto, for example? Do they tax capital gains, money that I make in the stock market? Maybe you're earning 100, 10 from this investment, 10 from that one, 20 from property in England, 30 from crypto gains, 15 from business profits. You know, which of these are taxed? And again, each country will have its own rules, but there are three main systems that a country may have. So, number one, worldwide income. Countries that have this tax system basically tax you on everything that you make. So regardless of where you make it, you have to pay our rates on everything that you make. And again, as I said before, there are different rates. For example, in the UK, capital gains is 20%, income tax goes all the way to 45%, dividend tax goes all the way to 39%, they tax crypto. The country you become tax resident in affects all taxes that you have to pay, not just, one, not just, on the money that you make from the business. So if you're a resident in a country that taxes you on your worldwide income, you literally have to pay taxes on your worldwide income everywhere you make it, everything you make. And this is popular among European countries, right, or Western countries. So, UK, Australia, Canada, etc., etc. However, there are two different other systems that a country can adopt, which are the preferred ones for digital nomads. So number two is the remittance basis. Countries that have this system only charge you on what you bring inside of the country. You make money online, you keep it in a foreign bank account, you don't have to pay tax until / if you decide to transfer it to a bank account in this country. So technically, if you spend that money in the country from your credit card, you don't have to pay taxes, right? So examples of these countries are like Thailand, Malta, even the UK had an option for this up to very recently actually. But basically you only pay taxes on what you bring inside of the country. So if you make your money online and keep it abroad and you don't bring it inside of the country, then you don't have to pay tax. And number three is the territorial basis, which is even better, which you only pay taxes on what you make inside of the country, physically, within the country's borders. Even if you then bring all the money you've made abroad or online inside of the country, then you don't have to pay taxes on it either. And examples of these countries can be, Panama, Paraguay, whatever. So as a digital entrepreneur, you want one of these two, a territorial system or a remittance-based system, such as whatever, Thailand, Indonesia. It's one of the reasons why they're so popular for digital nomads. If you think about why are all these people going to, Thailand? Yeah, it's a lovely country, but they're also not paying any taxes. So, yeah, that's it. These are a few of the popular countries digital nomads choose to pay their taxes in. I've moved to Thailand and making use of this strategy. It's absolutely amazing. There's no reason to be paying tax back home if you don't live there anymore. Okay, so yeah, these again are some of the more popular residencies that you can get. I won't really get into too much detail right now. But I might do another video on these in the future if you want one. So if you're leaving your home country and planning to nomad around with your laptop and your online business, get in touch with our team. We can help you with your tax setup. There's a link below to schedule a call. But yeah, to be honest, even if you don't need my help, like if you're working remotely from Thailand, Bali, wherever, you're pretty cool. So send me a message. We can go work out together or something. All right. See ya.